Are you tired of being housebound and ready to spend more time in your yard? Do you have a garden? Or have you been thinking of starting one? Would you like to learn some tips about starting a sustainable garden? Are you ready to learn about how gardening can support your health and well-being of you and your family and your pets? Why not? If so, then today's show is for you. Our guest will be sharing her journey into the world of sustainable gardening. She will also discuss how sustainable gardening supports your body, mind, spirit, and the monarch butterfly. And she'll be taking and answering your questions. So, as you know, as I like to say, get your pen and pad ready. You're going to want to take some notes, and you'll probably have some questions for our guest. Buckle up. We're getting ready to take a ride in the quantum field and possibly way beyond. Buckle up. I wouldn't want you to go flying to another dimension. Or just maybe, that's exactly what you need. Welcome to the People and Pet Show. Welcome to the People and Pet Show. I'm so grateful and honored to have with us our special guest, Heather Andrews. How are you, Heather? Oh, sorry, let me unmute off. Whoops, okay. Heather, how are you? Do that again.
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. You know, we're recording this during the midst of kind of the middle, hopefully middle and soon of the COVID stuff. And I guess a week and a half ago, I attended a virtual online conference, and it was very innovative. It was, traditionally if you go to a live stream conference, you sit and listen to the presenter. That's great. Maybe a little chat. No, this was very interactive. There were probably about 2,200 attendees, virtual attendees at this conference. And they put us out in meeting rooms through Zoom. And they also gave us the opportunity through a Facebook group, through the conference Facebook group, to meet people and share what we were doing. And that's how I met Heather. So I'm so honored and grateful she's here with us. So you never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to meet, even virtually in this day and age. All right. So again, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. If you're seeing it live right now through the Zoom call, type in where you're seeing this from. And if you're seeing this on replay, either on the Facebook page for People and Pets Energetics or the YouTube channel for the People and Pets Show, please give it a love, thumbs up, like, all those good things. Subscribe, like the page, whatever you feel guided to do. And please remember to share out this episode if you feel it's to your friends that are into sustainable gardening or have expressed interest. So that would be much appreciated. So again, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. I'm Mark Hernandez. I'm the owner and founder of People and Pets Energetics. I'm a holistic practitioner that helps people, animals, and your living spaces when you've hit the wall with health and well-being issues. Basically, I have intuitive gifts and extensive training to read the subtle energy fields and then identify and release non-beneficial energies locking to place your stuff. So for people, probably asking, who do you serve and how do you help them? On the people end, the people that commonly see me are consciously aware individuals, especially women. They're already in the holistic space, so maybe they're seeing a naturopathic doctor, a chiropractor, organic food eating, yoga, things along these lines. They've tried to help themselves already, done some things. Maybe they got a partial solution or no solution, and they're now experiencing some level of pain or discomfort, okay? That's interrupting the quality of everyday life. That's when they'll pick up the phone and call me. So I help people in 4 main areas. Bucket number 1, health and wellness. Bucket number 2, money, finances. Bucket number 3, career future. And the important bucket number 4, relationships, intimate relationships, friend relationships, work relationships. Everything's energy. So that's on the people end. For the pets, 2 main reasons the pet parents bring me their pets. Area 1, the pet has experienced a change in behavior. For example, you have a dog or cat, it's fine. Then one day, for a while, starts peeing and pooing all over the household. Or maybe the pet's experience separation anxiety. Or maybe you've introduced a new pet into the dynamic and the dynamics get wonky. So that's category 1, these changes in behavior. Category 2, the pet parents have taken the pet to the vet, and the vet discovers something veterinarily going on. I can provide a layer of energetic support. Maybe the vet's discovered a growth, something that's going on with the digestive tract. Again, this is something you do in addition to excellent veterinary care, if you're an animal, or if you're a person, to excellent medical care. Because my type of work is something, as I said, you do in addition. It's never a replacement for excellent medical care or veterinary care. The last category I work in are spaces. You know, we've probably all been in a space where we walk in and go, oh man, I just got to get out of here. Okay. Maybe it's a house. Maybe someone got a house that's beautiful on the outside, but maybe it went through, it was acquired through a foreclosure where there was a lot of stress or trauma in the household, and they left an imprint. Also, properties can be affected by things in the earth, natural occurring thing. The most common thing is geopathic stress. There are energy lines and things that can make people, quote unquote, sick, okay, and experience imbalances. All that can be identified and released. All my work is non-invasive, safe, gentle, and yields results. At times, immediately, and in other instances, over time. The last thing I'd like to add is I do multidimensional healings. Let me say briefly what that is. So for all of us, my understanding is we're currently having this experience in this current timeline, our souls, okay? In this timeline, I'm Mark, okay? And my soul has had other experiences in other timelines, past lives, parallel lives, future lives, in between lives. Lately, it's been coming through as unidentified lifetimes when I'm working with my clients. Kind of like a caller ID. We don't know who it is, but you got to clear it. So all those energies can be identified and released. What I'm seeing is as people are on the spiritual journey doing the work, they are feeling more energies from their other timelines, okay? We used to be able to kind of contain them in those other timelines, but now we're often feeling them. So I do now 100% of my consultations by phone or video technology. I'm known as a remote healer. So if you have something going on with you or your pet or your space, I can help you. So that's who I am and what I do in a nutshell. So now I'd like to turn and introduce my guest, Heather Andrews. For the past 20 years, Heather Andrews has been leading award-winning sales teams and working with key opinion leaders and sponsors on innovative clinical trials in the medical device industry. She is a photographer, writer, and speaker. Her photos and articles have been published in magazines that document her travels to over 30 countries and her love of gardens. When she's not working on clinical trials, you can find her in the garden, documenting her quest to restore pollinator habitats for the monarch butterfly. She offers private consultations and coaching to clients that are interested in starting or maintaining their own sustainable gardens. For more information, you can check out her video log on Facebook at The Thoughtful Gardener. The topic of our conversation, rediscovering your garden in uncertain times. Heather, welcome to the People and Pets Show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So as I was reading, I said, wow, 30 countries. I have an international background. I love the international space. So just share briefly, what are some of the countries you've been to?
I've been throughout Asia. Probably some of my favorites are Thailand. We were talking about Bali earlier because of your beautiful batik shirt.
Yeah.
Uh, love that. Very comfortable, by the way, in that hot, humid weather. I also really love India. My husband's from
Mm,
India, and I've been there many times. And
yeah.
love Switzerland. I like to be outside, and I would say that's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So I've worked all over Southeast Europe, so pretty much every country I've been to in Europe. So, but I love to travel. In Australia, I would say the people of Australia are fantastic.
Yeah. Mentioning Australia in a couple weekends, not this weekend, but next weekend, I'm going to be participating in a virtual holistic care. I'm going to have a virtual booth in Australia from my home.
That's awesome.
So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's just going to be an experiment, be fun, see what happens. So, topic is sustainable gardening. So, how did you get started in sustainable gardening? Share with us some key moments in your journey. How did you get interested and get going in this area?
So I was one of 12 grandchildren on my dad's side, and my grandfather always grew an acre garden. And as we used to walk through that as a child, he would always tell me that the years that his bees did well, his garden did well. And so I kind of intuitivly accepted that. I can't say that I loved gardening as a child. Pulling weeds were a part of my chores. So I don't necessarily think I loved it as much as I considered it work, but now I find that same task pretty, you know, stress relieving for sure. So moving to the Northeast once I married my husband was really a huge change for me in terms of how you garden. Here we have really strange cold snaps. So today is almost mid May. They say May 15th usually is our last frost. Well, they aren't kidding. We've had 2 nights of
Mm.
frost. So you really have to be very conscientious about how you plant things and making sure that you cover things when it gets super cold. So our growing season can be very influenced by the weather here. But I think in terms of sustainability, making sure that I do things that are going to be not only ideal for the environment, but encourage pollinators to come to the yard. That's really my goal.
Hmm. Great, great. So, in the introduction, I mentioned the term sustainable gardening. I imagine there are different definitions, approaches to sustainable gardening. For you, what is sustainable gardening?
Yep. So I think when I talk about sustainable gardening, what I'm trying to accomplish is really helping other people recognize that there are things you can do to promote more vegetable growth without necessarily bombarding your garden with insecticides. Certainly, there is clinical research to support that if you will plant certain things with your vegetables, that you can actually encourage more pollinators to come to your garden, which will increase the yield. But in addition, will encourage the good bugs to keep the bad bugs out. So something's not eating your garden, you don't have a sustainable garden. So it definitely is something you have to learn to deal with. But I purposely plant companion plants to prevent those bad bugs from eating all the things that I want to consume.
Yeah. So a lot of your sustainable gardens have both flowers and vegetables, or kind of, is that kind of,
That's right.
yeah.
So I can't have bees. I have cats, and they are indoor outdoor cats. So bees are not an option for me. And
Mhm.
really, honeybees are not native to North America. Most people don't realize they were imported from Europe. And so the majority of the pollination that actually occurs because of your local native bees. And if you look at the research coming out of Clemson University last year, where they took watermelon fields and they put beehives in those watermelon fields, and then in other fields, they put pollinator hedgerows, which are basically wildflowers, they got a 30% increase in yield from the native bees that visited those wildflower hedgerows and their watermelons.
Hmm. Very interesting. So, right now, like I said in the introduction, a lot of people have been indoors a lot. It's starting to get spring, here in Chicago, it's starting to warm up. We're not quite there yet either. And, wanting to spend more time in gardens. I was watching don't watch too much TV online, but I was watching commercials for a company. And they were talking about the victory gardens, I guess, harking back, I think from World War II, maybe one, too, but
Right.
definitely World War II. And it was actually a commercial about people spending time in the gardens and kind of unity and all that. Could you speak a little bit about how people are kind of rediscovering gardens right now, and how it can nurture their body, mind, spirit?
Absolutely. So I do think you are seeing a resurgence in interest in gardening for several reasons. One, self sustainability. We are all concerned about disruptions in the food chain, and people are recognizing that if they can grow for their family, not only is that protecting them for potential disruptions, but in addition, they can be a blessing to other people. So, one of my personal goals is to grow extra food for our food bank. We have
Mhm.
over 0.6 million people that are unemployed in this state right now,
Oh, yeah.
and our food banks have been overrun. In terms of benefits, clinical research certainly suggests, and I think I could absolutely attest that both there are physical and mental benefits to being in your garden. And I think in the time of pandemic, the garden's really been a solace for me. It's been a safe haven. And when things have gotten a little stressful, I live with a frontline healthcare worker. So every day is a stressful event when he comes home and we have to decontaminate. I really would sometimes go out. And interestingly, it shows from a recent study that by spending just 20 minutes in nature, your mental focus and your ability to recall information increases exponentially.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, it gets back, on many levels, I think just being back in nature, what I always tell my clients, definitely, as it's warming up around, just put your feet on the earth, bare feet, 20 minutes, you're going to get a lot of healing out of that. Or just taking a walk among the trees, that's very healing. Nature is very regenerating. So, and definitely the physical work, which, I speak for myself, many of us don't do as much anymore, getting our hands in the soil and all that, that's very reconnecting, I think, to the earth and more to ourselves
I
too.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And there seems to be some benefits of the breathing in those soil microbes. They've shown that it has a similar effect to Prozac without any side effects. So there certainly seems to be some healing that occurs just by working in the garden.
Yeah, absolutely. So, over the last year, when you consult with clients, what are some of the most common reasons that they're coming to see you?
A lot of people are very much like me. They might be in a new environment where they're struggling to make progress in their yard. We certainly had purchased a home that had great bones, but the garden had been terribly neglected. So sometimes you have a canvas, but that blank canvas can be quite intimidating. In other cases, they're aware of the work I've been doing through my Facebook page on documenting my own experience with Monarch Waste Station. And they're interested in creating a way station for themselves so that they can attract and support the endangered monarch butterfly.
So, my information is probably a little dated. I remember years ago, many of the monarch butterflies used to migrate from, I think, Michoacan in Mexico at the time. And again, that's probably changed. So, what's kind of the general migrating pattern of the monarch butterflies to the U.S. now, at least?
Well, I can certainly show you a picture if you're
Hey,
interested.
yeah, please do. Would love it.
Sure. So let me just show you real quick what that looks like.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see that you started to share screen sharing. That's what it says. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So
Oh,
that's my cat Lynx in the garden with me. I have lots of garden supervisors when I'm outside. And what he's looking over is a large patch of agastache, which is in the mint family, but the butterflies, it's completely irresistible to them. And here he's looking over what's called a milkweed, which is the host plant for the monarch butterflies. So the monarchs lay their eggs on this particular plant, and they will actually eat that all the way down, Mark. The first season I planted one, they ate down to the ground, and I was carrying baby monarch caterpillars and finding other plants to put them on because they'd eaten it all. They're voracious eaters for sure.
Cool. Very nice. Okay. Go ahead.
I think a lot of times people get confused about who the pollinators are. There are lots of different pollinators in the garden. So bees, bats, butterflies, all of these are definitely pollinators. And so, you want to not necessarily swat a wasp or a large bee, because lots of bees come and visit my garden, but I've never been stung. And you can see this one doing a lot of work in that squash blossom right there. So definitely a lot of people don't recognize that, if you want to have more birds in your yard, you've got to plant things that support caterpillars, because one nest of chickadees will eat over 500 caterpillars in a breeding season.
Whoa. So, and they're little. Those chickadees are little. They're cute, but they're little.
Little with mighty appetites, right?
Yeah, big appetites. Okay.
Cool. So this just shows you one of my my gardens. This is a swallowtail nursery. This is what they look like when they first hatch out. They actually are supposed to look like bird poop because they get disguised and the birds won't actually eat them.
Right.
But this guy is munching. Can you see that video?
Yeah, in the middle on the screen. Yes.
He is munching on what's called a bronze fennel. And it's just really a lot of fun, but you see how quickly they grow. These guys are well over an inch long, and very soon we'll spin chrysalises here, but they're literally eating that all the way down the stem, as you can see.
Yeah.
And this is what they look like when they hatch. So these are both swallowtails. The yellow one that you see is the same as this black one, but this is just a different variety called a black morph.
Yeah.
So this is a native plant, and this is one of the reasons I'm such a huge advocate for planting native varieties of butterfly plants. So this is called Joe Pye weed.
Okay.
I'd argue that our native plants probably need a makeover in terms of their names, because a lot of the plants that we're going to talk about today are weeds.
I'm sorry, a lot of are what? Could you repeat that?
Are weeds.
Oh, weeds. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Joe Pye weed, milkweed, a lot of them contain the word weed. So people get a little worried when they go to the plant store that I don't want to plant a weed, but it actually is. And it's even more beautiful covered by butterflies. So it just gives you some more, action shots.
Beautiful.
Look at those
butterflies in the garden.
Yeah.
But this is that pollinator strip that we talked about. And you asked me, how can I help people and what can they do? This is probably one of the easiest things that you can do, even in a city like Chicago. If you have access to what most people usually call the hill strip, these are native plants like coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, and others that really don't require a lot of work, but will help fuel those butterflies. And they do require a lot of fuel because, as you mentioned, they're going to go on quite the journey down to Mexico. So they have the longest migration of any insect.
Yeah.
So the monarchs have left Mexico now. They overwintered there in those mountains that we talked about earlier for 6 months. They're the super generation.
Wow.
So they fly approximately 2,000 miles.
Wow.
And you can see this is a monarch caterpillar here. And this is him literally shedding his skin.
Wow.
And I love this analogy about a butterfly is that, every day when you wake up, you have a choice of who you want to become. And the monarch butterfly makes a very difficult choice, which is to give up everything he's ever been, shed his skin, grow a chrysalis, which is basically a cocoon. And then for the next hour or so, that chrysalis is really soft and he's incredibly vulnerable. Only 1 in 10 will actually become a butterfly.
Wow, 1 in 10. You mean at this moment, even if they made it this far, only 1 in 10 from this point forward?
Correct.
Whoa.
Correct.
Woo.
So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they literally are turning themselves into goo and growing wings and growing a tongue and growing antenna. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it, they totally are transforming. And so it takes a lot of effort to be a butterfly.
Yeah.
But the reward is they can fly. So, this has been probably one of the most rewarding things about documenting the pages is you can see here the green chrysalises. They stay in this form for about 10 days. And then the night before, they always turn crystal clear like this, and I can see the wings, and so I know they're going to hatch. So that's how I was able to catch this butterfly.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Amazing.
So he will literally hang that way for about 2 hours. He's got to get all those fluid and out of his wings, and he's got to dry out pretty good. And then, after about 2 hours, they're able to fly.
Wow.
So my other goal is to help other people make a monarch way station. It's not very difficult to do. You can go to
these damn things. She catches
and
them,
you can. Hey, Mom, you may want to mute yourself. You definitely want to go there to see what you want to plant and how many of each plant you may need. And you can see the East Coast has done a very good job of putting monarch way stations in. Mine's in this number 12 here. But half of the butterflies, as they're migrating up from Mexico, go west and half go to the east. And the habitat, especially in the west, is declining. And that's challenging, but you can see the good news is that in 2019, over 4,500 new way stations were added throughout the US and throughout Canada. So it's very exciting that you're seeing more and more people get interested in. And my way of thinking about it, Mark, is, I'm a traveler. I love Iceland. I've been multiple times. And last year, Iceland lost a glacier. I don't really know what I can do about that. But what I can do is I can be responsible in my own backyard. So it gives me a feeling of control. And I think, in times of uncertainty, control is good. And so if I can create a nice habitat for monarchs, that's really what I want to do. I want to try to do what I can do to encourage them to come back. So as they travel up, Mark, their great grandchildren will be in the backyard by the end of the month.
Wow. Incredible.
And no one really knows how that happens. So this picture I really wanted to show you. This weather map. You see this yellow line? Those are monarchs.
Ooh, wow.
There were so many last year, they showed up as a storm.
Wow.
So, it does make a difference. And you can see this is in my garden where I've tagged a butterfly, and the researchers use this information to figure out how far the butterflies have flown coming towards Mexico and the preserve and where they come from.
So this picture from that you showed through Norman, Oklahoma, this was, you said a couple years ago?
Last year.
Last year, okay. And what was the turning point? Because at one point, the monarchs, like many insects, were kind of like the bees, kind of really going down in numbers, right?
You're right. And it's still a problem. I mean, certainly there are plants, if you buy them at a box store, that are treated with neonicotinoids, which is basically nicotine. I recommend that. We don't think that's a good idea for the pollinators. And then two, people spray their yards for mosquitoes. That's also not a great idea because it hurts other pollinators too. So we think as the more that we educate people about staying away from insecticides, the better the pollinators are going to do. And as we discussed, they seem to be doing very well on the East Coast, but there's a sincere loss of habitat out west. So we need more Western gardeners to get involved.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said about the pesticides. Definitely impacts the monarchs. I see it in all my consultations for people and animals. Just worked with a cat last week. One of the issues was really red eyes. And one of the big pieces was, the herbicides, even though the cat doesn't go outside, open the windows and all that. But anyway, you were going to tell us something else. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Absolutely. No, I myself, as we've talked about, have 4 cats, and one of them was born with a genetic condition that we don't really understand what triggers her condition.
Yeah.
So we're super careful about any chemicals that we use in her home, as well as the garden where she lives. So my grass gets no chemicals whatsoever. And she's not, thank goodness, had a flare up now for 3.5 years. So we feel really lucky.
That's great. That's great. You ready to take some questions from the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you'd like to ask Heather a question of either about the monarch butterflies or questions you have about your garden, doing a sustainable garden, please raise your hand, jump in, or just unmute yourself. Let's see.
Hi, this is Kim.
Hi,
Hi,
Kim.
Kim.
Share with us. I know where you are, but share with the audience where you're from.
We live in Wisconsin.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and even when my boy was young, we would get the monarchs milkweeds and stuff, and we'd collect their eggs and put them in like a little display area in our living room, and we'd get like 6 or 7 of them. We'd hatch them and let them go, and just watching the metamorphosis and learning of the different stages. It's grown quite a bit, so we've, even last summer then we did it again, and we found some and bring them in, because from what I read, even when they're caterpillars, sometimes they're at such a risk of being ate. So when we find some of them, we bring some in and hatch them, and then we watch them fly away when they come out. So yeah, we have a lot of milkweeds here in Pickett. I live in Pickett.
Yay. Well, that's what they like. So you clearly are doing a great job. How old's your son?
He just turned 15 now.
Awesome.
And my 7-year-old watched one last summer come out. We had 2 or 3.
That's fantastic.
And 2 summers ago, we found a Cecropia moth. Those great big huge ones, as big as your hand.
Big moth.
Yeah, and we hatched 5 or 6 of them. Those things are beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
They're huge. They get as big as your thumb.
They are. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I never thought about attracting, the more bees, more produce you have in the garden. I just never put 2 and 2 together, so it's nice to be aware of that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was definitely kind of an intuitive thing for me, but the first spring or the first summer I did it, I literally was calling my neighbors like, you've got to come over here and rescue me because there's so many vegetables right now. I'm going to ring the doorbell and run away. So it does work with caution. Well. But it also, too, will encourage the good bugs to show up instead of the bad bugs. So the only guy I fight is I have a groundhog, and he thinks my tomatoes are really tasty, and he loves to take 1 bite out of every tomato. Could he just eat one? I'll come out and he'll have eaten like 1 of each. So frustrating. If you've got an answer for that, that would be great. I haven't figured. I'm gonna have to plant him his own garden, is what I've decided.
Yeah, I've got baby fawns that like to come in and eat my beet tops off. So, yeah,
it's so hard. Cute. Yeah, we have a lot of deer here too, but we have a fence, so they have enough food on the other side of the fence in my tiny forest that they have not. Although I'm sure they could jump our fence, they haven't done it yet.
So Kim, tell us a little bit about your garden. What type of garden do you usually have?
It's vegetables. So we put in potatoes and carrots and cucumbers and beans and peas and lots of greens.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I planted some carrots and onions last week, but we got a big cold spell, so I kind of slowed down on putting my seeds in for a while yet.
Yeah, my husband's ready to kill me. I have so many seedlings on every surface at this point because it's too cold for them to go out. So I understand completely. What are some of the things you're doing for, it sounds like you've had a very successful garden. What are some tips that you have that you've been able to do to get sustainability in your yard?
We don't use any pesticides. We have apple trees, and I hang like some vinegar, molasses, and water in a gallon jug in my branches to keep the moths down. And I figure if I get half the crop with no bugs and half the crop I can use for applesauce and canning, I'm happy. And
Wow.
I use a lot of straw down in the garden to keep the weeds down. So I'm not in there tillering, and I notice quite a bit of activity in the ground, lots of worms. It's very fertile. This is my 3rd year of doing that, not having to tiller in the garden.
Yeah, you figured something out that our UK colleagues who are, I think gardening is like part of their national pastime that they figured out, which is build your garden up and call it no-dig gardening instead of digging down. Because like you've noticed is that you don't harm what's already in the soil by cutting it in tiny little pieces. And then two, you're not disturbing the architecture of what lives there, which are your worms and other animals that are helping your plants be sustainable.
It's less worrying about watering too. It saves on the water.
Lots less watering and lot less weed seeds because you're not exposing them. So that's a very valid point. So you're doing the right thing. Keep going.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you also compost? It sounds like you've got a lot of land there with your apple trees and so forth.
Yeah, we compost a lot. We have a big hill. I've got a couple goats and we got chickens, so all that stuff goes on the hill too.
That's awesome. You've really got a winning combination there with all of that. So that's the other thing we do is I do compost, and my eggshells, coffee grinds, and the kitchen scraps go straight into the compost in the back, and that makes that really nice soil. I would love to have chickens and goats, by the way. That would be awesome.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yep. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Learning as much today as I'm teaching.
Good. Hey, that's the ideal situation. I tell my clients I learn something new every day. So this is great. I'm learning a lot too. So thank you, Heather. All right. Well, thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. She's a regular supporter of the show. So thanks for being here, Kim. Now go to the other Heather Andrews. Do you have a question?
Well, I'm very fortunate because anytime I have a question, I just call her.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. But maybe you have a new one. Does anything come up during the conversation today of the call for you?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I've gotten to see her pictures and hear her do some talks before, but I'm always learning something and sharing with my other friends who have gradually become gardeners and more interested in plants and things because of the things I do. I don't do 1/1000th of what she does, but I do have a small garden plot where I do grow vegetables all year long. And then I do a number of things in our yard. We live in a 55+ community, and so we don't have a very large yard, but I do have the opportunity to, to plant some things, which I enjoy doing. And it's exactly like you guys were talking about this morning. You know, it's such a wonderful activity. One of the things that is so highly recommended in the midst of this virus is the fresh air, sunshine, vitamin D, and just being outside. Get out of your house. And so you don't have to be around anybody if you go outside and work in your yard or work in your garden. And it's just it's a great thing. I have something going in those places all the time. We normally are pretty safe to plant where we live in well, it's not quite eastern North Carolina, but it's a little further east than just the midline of the state. Typically, we're fairly safe to plant things after the 15th of April, but this year, already 2 days this week, last night it was 39 and several days ago it was 37. And I did have to, the very small plants that I started from seed, I did have to cover those things because they're still quite tender, and I was afraid of them, but afraid for them. But normally we're okay past mid-April to plant anything we want to. And also because I have a small little grow house at my vegetable garden, I grow things all winter. Now, and right now, because my kale overwintered and because I planted Swiss chard early, I've been harvesting those. And I pulled up, this year was I heard Kim talk about carrots. This was the first year I'd ever planted carrots. And I was successful, except I think I planted them too close together because some of them came out pretty funny looking. They got in each other's way, but they were delicious. And I tried a new recipe the last few days with those carrots because I had all these carrots and nothing else to do with them except grind them up and make something out of them. But they were quite good. But but anyway, gardening for me a lot of times is an experiment. There's some things I've done many times and things go well, but because of where we live, we have a lot more trouble with insects sometimes than Heather does. So she's a lot more successful with squash and zucchini than I am. But I think because my garden plot is part of a community garden, if somebody gets squash bugs, everybody gets squash bugs, and therefore it's a problem. So I decided after the squash bug war last year, I'm not planting squash this year. I'm doing some other things just so I don't have to fight them. But anyway, it's always an experiment, but it's fun, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not, and that's okay too.
Yeah. No, what you said about the carrots, I mean, I still remember 1991, I was in northern Spain in the province of Galicia, in the region, and I was in Santiago de Compostela. I remember I went to the local market, had a peach. I still dream about that peach. It was the most delicious peach I ever had. It was fresh. I mean, it's so interesting too, because I know now energetically, you know, fruit will taste different, a little different in different parts of the world
Yes.
too, because of the soil, the energy of the land. But I still dream of that peach. You go,
Delicious.
So, yeah, absolutely.
I think Heather has peaches like that. She talks about getting the white peaches where she lives. And she lives in an area that is surrounded by fantastic gardeners who do everything organically. And she can, anything she doesn't grow, she can purchase from these people that, you know, are amazing gardeners. And she just always has this fabulous assortment of fruit and vegetables because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Well, thank you, Heather, for sharing your work in the gardens. I know it's, like I said, it's a lot of fun, and it's good for us, all of us. Like you said, get outside, you know, get in the garden and feel better. Yeah, absolutely.
Play in the dirt.
And play in the dirt, you know, because, you know, again, I don't have any children, but I know today there's such a, you know, concern with children about keeping them clean, and I'm all for that. But there was some benefit too when we were at least my generation of getting outside, getting dirty, rolling in
You
the
better
dirt,
believe it. That's
all that.
exactly
So,
right. Mhm.
but anyway, yeah, well, great. Well, thank you, Heather, very much. All right. So as we're starting to round up the show, would you like to share with the audience where you see your work heading in the next 1 to 2 years, like any new directions in your work with the monarchs or sustainable gardening?
Yeah, I think that what I want to continue to do, the page was really sort of an outlet for me professionally. I had sort of hit a wall professionally
Yeah.
and pivoted to this as an outlet. And never in tomorrow will be a year that the page has existed, but thousands of people follow it.
Yeah.
And it's just such an interesting community that has built around itself. And people like Kim have come and said, I want to attract monarchs. How do I do that? So I've sent thousands of seeds, to gardeners all over, both North America, both Canada and US, to encourage them to plant for monarchs. And now I'm getting pictures of little baby milkweeds growing, which is very fulfilling. But I think what I would like to be able to do is to continue to pivot. I have had several people reach out to me about helping them with garden design and helping them with how they can be more sustainable. So you mentioned Victory Gardens earlier. I think that it is a huge boom. The organic seed stores that I order from, and I placed those orders last fall, thank goodness, almost all of them have sold out of seeds. So, I've been very pay it forward. I think right now is a good time to be a time of blessing. And so people that were either being restricted by their governors on buying gardening supplies, which did happen, or just couldn't find what they were looking for because all of the stores and online were sold out. I've sent tons and tons of seeds all over. So I want to continue to be a blessing in this time. And help others learn how to garden. So part of my job, Mark, with doing the conference that you mentioned earlier, is really being inspired by others like you to turn this into a potential platform and use my passion to help other people rediscover their passion and grow their own vegetables organically, as well as support habitat for wildlife.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So, so Heather, please share with the audience, what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it your Facebook page, if you could mention that, or other ways? Yeah.
Sure. So my Facebook page is The Thoughtful Gardener, and you will see the monarch butterfly as my picture, and a beautiful black morph swallowtail if you to go on to the page. If they can just shoot me a private message, I do free 15-minute consultations. So my request to them is just to take a picture of their garden at 9, 12, and 3. That gives an idea of how much sunlight they get, because sunlight does impact what can grow, and a lot of the pollinator plants do need quite a bit of sun, although there are things that will work in the shade. So if I understand that, then I can help them. So many people are like what we talked about. They've got good bones, perhaps, and they're add to, or in some cases, they've got a complete blank slate. And my advice always to them is don't try to eat the whale in one bite. Let's take a little portion and let's work on that piece, and then we can expand outwards, because a lot of times people want to do it on their own. And if they're capable of that, then, I can give them a plan. So it can be something very simple, or it can be more detailed that address what they're interested in, whether it's attracting more birds or more butterflies or both. I can give them a plan that will work for their zone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that very generous offer. So this is for a limited time. So if you are thinking about, you have a garden or want to start a garden, she said, take pictures at what times? 9, 3, and
9, 12, and 3. Basically,
okay.
You want to follow the sun. So I need to know how much sun that area gets.
Okay. Yeah. Reach out to her through messengers. Say you saw this on the People and Pet Show, and see if those are available, and she'll kind of get you started and give you some really a great framework for moving forward with your gardening. So thank you very much for that offer to my community. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Mark.
Yeah. So any last words you'd like to share with the audience today before we sign off?
No, first of all, just thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward to being able to share the recording with my community. So thank you very much for recording this for us so that I can make people aware of what you do, because many gardeners are also crazy cat ladies like I am. So definitely want to be able to help their pets. And I've seen that you've been able to do that. And so really appreciate the work you're doing. But certainly just to encourage people to give it a try, even if it's just a small pot of herbs on your doorstep. That small part of herbs could be, tea for your morning if you wanted to grow mint, or rosemary. You can crush that and smell it, and it increases your retention, your memory retention by 75%. There's so many healing things that we grow and we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
A new study is looking at sage and how sage helps Alzheimer's and dementia patients for memory recall. So it's interesting that in this time of panic and COVID, that we can certainly spend time outside in the garden safely and get the things that potentially can help us both with our physical and mental well-being.
Yeah, just exactly what you said. In COVID, a lot of people are poking around with homeopathic remedies, at least to support themselves, minimum boost their immune systems, or if they do, think they have COVID stuff, to mitigate, the effects of it. So
absolutely.
Return to nature. There's a reason plant medicine has been around for a long time, because it helps a lot of people. So
absolutely.
Again, yeah. So thank you again, Heather, for being my guest on this episode of the People and Pets Show. And as I said, I'll be posting this on replay definitely within the next 24 hours, much likely really a lot sooner. You'll find it on my Facebook page, and I'll be posting it to the YouTube channel. I'll be sharing it with Heather's community. And please, if you found value in this, know people that are interested in gardening, please share this episode of the People and Pets Show with your circles. So, as you know, we go live every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. On the show, I interview leading figures in the holistic world, either for people, animals, or spaces. Or obviously, there's an overlap, gardening, the space, but for people and the animals or the insects. So, so again, next week, my guest will be Peter Schenk. He's the modern day mystic. He has a really cool line of technological products that bridge science and consciousness to really promote your optimal health, well-being, and happiness. So please join us. He has a really diverse product suite. He'll be sharing some of his, inventions, and there are like toys. I have his aquaware. I use it all the time. I'll be talking more about that. So please join us next week. My guest will be Peter Schenk. Again, thank you all for being here. Again, if I can be of help with people, your animals, or your spaces, you're stuck and hit the wall, give me a call. You can book a session through my website, and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for being on the call. Have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.